Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Upshift podcast. The podcast is, of course, all about racing. Today, we are joined by our brand new co-presenter, our feeder series formula specialist, and he is going to be joining us for all of our DTM or most of our DTM episodes, like the episode today. It is Aidan. Aidan, how are you doing, man?
Pretty good.
This weekend we had a pretty wild weekend of DTM. For all of my predictions went out the window since free practice. Let's talk about free practice, both of the free practices for a little bit. A guy who shocked me, I don't know about you, is Alex Albon actually, and because he was right up on the pace through both of the free practices. In free practice one, he was just under 2/10 off of P1, and I can't pronounce that guy's name. I forgot how to pronounce
Argentine.
Arjun Maini. He was P1, and Albon was just under 2/10 off of him. And free practice two, he was 0.002 off of Shelter van der Linde. So, what do you think happened to hit Albon's pace throughout the weekend? Because he looked so promising through free practices, but he just seemed to not be on the pace throughout both qualifyings and the race.
Well, as I have mentioned when we were talking earlier, was the fact that Liam is like the complete opposite. He's usually nowhere in practice, and then he's way up there in the qualifying races. So whether it's that Alex is doing the fast pace programs for the whole team, and Liam's sort of doing slower pace programs, since they're both running equal machinery, they'll need to test some things. And I mean, maybe it could be the same thing that people said about Alex when he was driving for Red Bull. Maybe it's the pressure.
Yeah.
When he's under qualifying conditions and in the race. I mean, he still seems to excel in the race. Race one was still great from him.
Yeah.
But in qualifying, it's still needs a lot of work. And of course, like I can tell he's not used to the car, because Formula One to DTM, big jump.
Yeah.
Going from a really light agile car to a really big heavy car that doesn't turn.
Yeah.
Whereas like Liam, he's already driving a car that doesn't turn in the Formula 2 machinery.
Yeah,
So
he's very used to it.
You can see why Liam is destroying him almost. But it's hard to tell just why Alex is so poor in qualifying specifically. I mean, what's his results over the season so far? We got 14th, 12th, 7th, and 13th.
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
And Liam's are up in like P2, P. I think he's not a pole yet, has he? He's just been like P2,
No,
P4, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think his
He's
lowest
been
result
way
like
up.
P5.
Yeah. He definitely seems to be more of a one lap guy, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely seems I keep comparing him to actually Daniel Ricciardo right now, who Daniel's now in a car that he's unfamiliar with, and so is Alex. And they're trying to get used to these cars, and they're going up against like Daniel Ricciardo. He's going up against Lando Norris, and Albon right now is going up against Liam. And Liam, as we've seen so far, especially in Formula 2, he can adapt to a car extremely quickly. In his first ever race in Formula 2, I think he won, I believe. Because so he adapts to a car extremely quickly. So I think people need to give him more time. But Alex also, he needs to improve very quickly to then again, like try to, because he said he wants to get into Formula One next year. So he needs to rapidly improve his pace if he does want to get into Formula One next year, not Formula Two. Because at the moment now I believe Liam has double or more than double his points. Because I think Albon has 31 and Liam has 65.
Yes,
So yeah,
more than double.
he needs to rapidly improve where he is, because if he keeps struggling through qualifying, because we saw it in race one, he does, and in Monza, he does have race pace. His race pace greatly outshines his qualifying pace. So if he gets a good qualifying together, then I think he can try to push for podiums the way Liam is. But speaking of qualifying, let's talk about qualifying one, for Lausitzring? Is that how you pronounce it?
Loves it.
Lausitzring. Sheldon van der Linde was on pole, and he seems to be improving since we last saw him in Monza. And Kevin van der Linde, his brother, was just behind him, less than a tenth in P2. So the Van der Linde, Van der Linde brothers, I'm pretty sure. I think it's pronounced.
Van der
Uh,
Linde, I
Van der
believe.
Linde brothers, yeah, are doing pretty well for themselves. But we had the entire session. We had a really, really, really good battle for pole position. So, who do you think? Who impressed you the most in that qualifying session, Aidan?
I would say impressive. By impressive, I would probably actually say Esteban Muth, because his consistency in qualifying, at least up until that point, was incredible.
Mm.
Where he was consistently getting amazing results through his qualifying, and considering that the only other driver on the grid that's in the Lamborghini Huracan is Esme Hockey, who was down in 18th on the grid, and he was up in 4th. He's really showing to be a very strong one lap pace driver.
Yeah.
And I'm certainly think he could be strong for the top of the midfield, at least in this championship. And I mean, I wouldn't say it was like impressive, it was more of a shock, because we've not really seen Sheldon van der Linde do a lot so far in Monza. He had a sort of quiet round,
Yeah.
but then when he went into that pole position, that was a bit of a shocker.
Yeah,
So,
both the brothers are impressing very well, but the guy who impressed me the most is actually Arjun Miney. Thankfully, I pronounced his name correctly this time.
well done.
Thank you. But he struggled in Monza last round. He struggled in Monza and didn't really do much. He was 13th in Monza in qualifying 2, and in qualifying 1 in Monza he was 12th as well. So he didn't do much, and to get P6 was a bit of a shocker to me, because he wasn't that far off of Liam Lawson. So he definitely showed his pace throughout this round, sorry. And I was very impressed by him, because he I think he's I don't know where his teammate actually was. I'm trying to find where his teammate was.
Uh,
Trying to find it.
I think
Uh,
me.
can't really find it. Well, anyways,
No.
yeah, he definitely impressed, and he definitely made a huge step up since the Monza round, where he didn't do much. And actually, did he DNF in both of them or just one? I think
I think it was one.
it was one, and then he finished very low in the second one. So he definitely
Yeah.
impressed me the most, showing that his big step up from the first round in Monza. Now let's move on to race 1, where we also had a very good race, but something that kind of weirded when we were watching it both was Nico Muller, where he pitted on the last lap, I think, of the race, or the second to last lap, like
Yeah.
past the time limit, where they because I believe Esme Hockey, she crashed in the Lamborghini, and that set up the safety car, and that ended up translating into 3 extra laps at the end. And I think he pitted around that second to last lap. So that was a very odd strategy from Muller, because I thought he was trying to go long and then just rocket up the field at the end and try to get points, but he was nowhere. He didn't seem to have the pace to be in the top 10. He finished 10 seconds outside of top 10. So that was a bit of an odd strategy. But Philip Ellis actually ended up winning the Grand Prix, and Liam Lawson finished in P2, and Mike Rockenfeller finished off of the podium. And ask the same question from qualifying, Aidan, who impressed you the most in that race?
Oh, Let me get my qualifying results back up again, just so I can sort of see where people came from in the grid. Uh, I mean, I've got to say Philip Ellis, don't I? I mean, he went from ninth on the grid to take his first DTM victory in his third race.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think as they said in the during the race, he's quite a confusing driver. He's English, German, and grew up in Switzerland. So the Anglo-German Swiss racing driver racing under the Swiss flag. I'm not going to continue with that because I'm just going to frazzle my brain. But yeah, I think the fact that he also won like by over a second from Liam, and Liam's showed to be one of the most pacey drivers this season so far, and maybe even consistent drivers too, like consistently at the top at least. I think that's an impressive feat to be able to do that, and especially the fact that he'd even beaten people like Rockenfeller, Van der Linde. Of course, Van der Linde had the success ballast from Monza race too, and because he won that, he had the highest success ballast that there was, and that obviously hampered his performance because I think he would have won that if he didn't have the ballast. But of course, that's why I support this success ballast, is because it makes the racing a bit more exciting, because then you won't have the same people consistently doing well over and over and over.
Yeah.
Hence how it let Ellis take that victory, which I think was a very good thing. So yeah, he was who I would say was the best in that.
Yeah, I'll actually have to agree with you. Going from ninth to first in your third ever race in DTM is something is so impressive to me. And yeah, it's like you said, to finish over a second over Liam Lawson is nothing to sniff at. It was a very impressive showing from Philip Ellis. And I'll talk about Sheldon before we move on to qualifying two, I believe. Sheldon Van der Linde had a pretty good race, actually. Unfortunately, he did get that penalty. What was the penalty for? I think was it track limits? I believe it was.
I can't remember.
I believe it was track limits, and he got a 5-second time penalty, and that ended up pushing him from fifth all the way back to ninth. So that gave Esteban Muth, Marco Whitman, Lucas Auer, and Alex Albon a step up in the positions. And the finishing order from that race was Esme Hockey, finished in dead last, followed by Sophia Flörsch, and both of them, I believe, DNF'd actually out of the race. And so did Maximilian Gotz and Daniel Angadella. I really need to learn how to pronounce people's names before we go on
I
this.
think it's Moncadea, I
Angadea,
believe.
yeah. But that was a weird switch where he just came out at the end of the Grand Prix, where to just
Yeah.
go 1 or 2 laps at the end, which I actually didn't know you could do in a race where you can just technically DNF and then come back out. That was
Yeah.
odd. That was a bit odd to see. So he came out
Wasn't
at
he
the end.
also the driver who got a penalty or was under investigation for entering the pit lane the wrong way?
Yeah, he was. That was how do you do that?
How?
Did he spin or something? That was weird. But he is followed by Vincent Abril, Arjun Miney, Nico Muller, Dev Gore, Timo Glock, Maximilian Buch, Sheldon Van der Linde, Esteban Muth, Marco Whitman, Lucas Auer, Alex Albon, Kevin Van der Linde. And in the podium positions are Mike Rockenfeller, Liam Lawson, and Philip Ellis. Now let's move on to qualifying two. Since there's 2 races in the weekend, it's kind of like Formula 2. So a guy who we're both disappointed with was Alex Albon.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we seem to be talking about him a lot this weekend. His pace, to say bad,
Is an understatement.
is a bit of an understatement. I don't know how he's 7/10 off the pace. Actually, 6/10 off the pace. Actually, it's not I feel like in Formula 1, that's not bad. But I feel like in DTM, that's bad, in my
But
personal
let's
opinion.
not forget, if we look at the gaps at least, the gaps are all less
Very
than
small.
a
Yeah.
half 10, all the way up until the gap between Liam and Philip Ellis. And that was an absolutely monster gap between those two. Like, how did he pull that off?
Yeah, that's just yeah, just 4 tenths. Yeah, Philip Ellis definitely impressed this entire weekend. But yeah, it was just it was a gut wrenching feeling to see him down in 13th place. That was a horrible feeling. But again, hopefully he can improve. Um, but we'll see next 2 weeks, I think. I believe. Yeah, 2 weeks. But again, to ask you again the same question. Who impressed you the most, Aidan, in this
I
qualifying
think I've
session?
already said. I think it has to be Philip Ellis again.
Did we Philip
He just
Ellis?
seemed to have more control over his car than anyone else the whole weekend.
Yeah,
And I think this qualifying session showed it more than any.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, like you said, everyone's gaps are less than except yeah, except all the way in the back of the field. Everyone's gaps are usually less than a tenth, usually less than half a tenth actually, until we got to Liam Lawson, and the gap between him and Philip Ellis is 4 tenths. So yeah, very, very, very impressive from Philip Ellis. And actually, I also say Maximilian Gotts actually impressed me pretty well because again, he's been very quiet as well throughout the season so far. And he popped up right to P3 in qualifying. So very good from Maximilian Gotts. And now let's go to race 2, the final race of this weekend. And Maximilian Gotts wins the Grand Prix from
Grand Prix.
P3. Huh?
Grand Prix.
Grand Prix race.
Wrong terminology.
Yeah, same thing. He wins the race from P3, followed by Liam Lawson getting the second podium of this weekend, and 3 out of 4 podiums, 4 races and 3 podiums, followed by Sheldon van der Linde, who gets the last podium positions. And I'm pretty sure Sheldon would have, I mean, sorry, Kevin, he would have won, right? I'm pretty sure, but he had an engine failure.
Yeah, his
Like,
engine shut down.
yeah, his engine shut down in the last few laps, and then that gave Maximilian Gotts the lead and Liam Lawson P2. But then he kick-started back, and he started chasing down Liam Lawson. But unfortunately, he did not get past. Now, again, to ask you the same question I've asked you 4 times now, who impressed you the most this week? This race?
Oh, I mean, there's a few you could say for this one. I mean, certainly I think it would have to be Kelvin van der Linde. I think he would have won that race by quite a distance, seeing the gap between Gotts and Lawson. And considering that Kelvin fell back with his failure, he was lucky to get that thing started again. That could have been race over.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, he was the one who impressed me the most in that race for sure.
Yeah, that was to just finish, I believe. Please load. Finish what 6 tenths off of Liam Lawson with your
Yeah.
engine fully just cutting out. That's nothing to be mad about. But yeah, still finishes on the podium with 15 points. Yeah, he did impress me, but I think the person that impressed me a little more was Sheldon van der Linde, who finishes in P5, goes from 7th to 5th. He had a very good race, I think. He finishes only 7 seconds off of the win today. But let's talk about the guy we keep talking about, Alexander Albon, who finishes in 11th place, unfortunately. Just overtaken in the last few laps by Nico Muller, who again pits basically at the last lap, at the last moment that he can. And Albon gets overtaken, and he did have a great overtake on Arjun Miney actually in the dying few laps just before Muller actually overtook him. So yeah, hopefully he improves, but we'll see next round. I'm just hoping he can improve because I have a lot riding on him. I have a lot of hopes riding on him. But yeah, we'll see how he improves, and we'll. I'm a bit nervous saying that if he will improve. If he doesn't improve, I'm gonna look like an idiot. But yeah, I just don't know where his pace was this weekend. Like he
No,
is,
it's just
it was just
not his
poor.
track.
Yeah, yeah, he
I
has never
think,
been into this track actually, and
yeah,
he has been to
uh,
Monza obviously. So yeah, it's a
yeah.
bit.
I mean, like
Uh,
Monza, he was there last year. He has the fresh experience,
yeah,
of course. So of course, while he's still adjusting to the car,
yeah,
I think that was a good place for him to start because he is used to the track. Of course, I don't want to get all the Albon haters started, but 20th to 22nd of August, we got the Nürburgring, and we all know what happened there last year. That's a race we like to forget.
yeah.
Here's
First of
hoping
all,
we
like,
can bounce back from that.
yeah, hopefully he can improve. So yeah, and he had a very good overtake on Arjun Miney. So yeah, I think he's one of the better overtakers on the grid. So
Yeah,
I think if he just, again, like we talked about before, if he gets his qualifying pace in check, because he has a good race pace. He went from 13th to 11th and was almost 10th. If he gets his race pace in check, I think he can do well, and will do well soon. But yeah, that's all the time we have for today. Oh wait, sorry. Before we end, actually, out of this entire weekend so far, who was your driver of the weekend?
Philip Ellis. It has
Ellis.
to be, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, he was just on fire the whole weekend.
yeah. He just seemed to be way more in control of his car than everyone else, like you said. He seemed to be like right on the pace in every single session. So yeah, for me as well, driver of the weekend, Philip Ellis. So thank you everyone so much for watching. Go follow Aidan on Instagram. His stuff will be in the description below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all next week for the Hungarian Grand Prix, and Aidan might be joining us as well then. So thank you everyone for watching.
Sorted, at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah, hopefully. So thank you everyone so much for watching, and I'll see you all later. Goodbye. Peace out.